Wait, SEC fans and those rogue Utah people told me the Big 12 sucks. CBS just put two of us in their top 10. How good is this league actually? Let's deep dive. This is Locked On Big 12.
You are Locked On Big 12, your daily podcast on the Big 12 Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Wednesday, everybody. Welcome into Locked On Big 12. I'm Drake Toll from America's #1 Big 12 podcast, Locked On Big 12. Thank you for making this show your first listen every single day on the program. Let's go over how the Big 12 is crushing it in the polls right now. Hello, college football playoff. Kansas State will lose to Colorado in Boulder. That is what the intern predicted on Twitter. A very good intern. Zach, thank you for a subject today because it might just happen. And finally, I'm going to pick every game in the Big 12 this week. If you hit subscribe, I get to keep my job. Remember the day in time. I remember where I was standing in the line at Costco to get a hot dog when I read the first tweet from a Utah fan that said, "It is a conference that we will dominate. It is a conference that is irrelevant. It is a mid-conference. We don't need it. They need us." And I get it. That's like a rogue sect of 4% of Utah fans. But there was rhetoric at the beginning of this year. The Big 12 stunk. And maybe I'm picking on Utah fans because you're the only ones that said that. Like you and that random Arizona State president or athletic director who already got fired after saying that he was like, "I'm not going to Morgantown. You can't make me." And they're like, "All right, you're fired. You're not going to have to go to Morgantown anyway. Maybe you can be their assistant deputy AD." Now, after that rhetoric from the SEC and the rogue Utah fans and that one guy from Arizona State, the Big 12 has both Iowa State and BYU in the top 10. And let me tell you something. Utah might still be the best team in the Big 12. You're like, "No, Drake, don't say that. No." We all said preseason that Utah was the best team in the conference. It was unanimous amongst like national media. Hey, they're going to go to the Big 12 championship game. They've only lost one game. The Cam Rising isn't dead yet that we know of, though we can't be 100% sure always about the status of Cam Rising. Like the Utah Utes at number 20 in the country per CBS, they're still well in the playoff race. Kansas State at number 19 in the country, 4-1. They're still well in the playoff race. And now we have two. We make up 20% of the top 10. Iowa State's ranked above Clemson. Like at the top is Texas, then Ohio State, then Penn State, then Oregon. So the Big Ten's got 3 of the top 5. Then Miami and Clemson, like the ACC's got a couple of top 10 teams, and we're used to Clemson being there. And is Miami fraudulent? Maybe they just had that whole Cal thing happen. And here we are with Iowa State and Clemson. Who would have thought? Like I was so ready for a really strong 8-4 season from Iowa State, an impressive 6-6 from BYU, and now those two schools represent the conference at the very top. So that begs the question then, is this legit? We don't have the sample size of even half the year for both of those teams. They're 5-0, not 6-0. We still have 7 games left for both those squads for disaster to strike, as it did for BYU last year, or disaster to strike for Iowa State, as it still could this year. Do I believe that will be the case? No. But here's what I beg of you. Here's what I specifically beg of the top half of the conference. If we don't cannibalize ourselves too much, this league's in a very good spot. Iowa State, BYU, Utah, Kansas State, and I'm going to loop in Texas Tech. All have Colorado as well. I'll pull Colorado in. All have to keep winning. Arizona State, if you want a seat at the table, you have to keep winning. Those schools can still contend at the top level of the Big 12 and the top level of college football. I am confident any one-loss team in this conference has, I know they have a shot at the college football playoff, but has a shot to crack into the top 25 and represent us nationally, which in this age of college football, you need now more than ever. We are in the most volatile period. Unprecedented times, folks. The most volatile period of college football where it matters more how much money you make and how many eyeballs you bring in than anything else. And how do you make money and bring in eyeballs? You win. Iowa State at 8, BYU at 10 per CBS Sports. They have Kansas State at 19, Utah at 20. Here's what's crazy about our conference. Is you want to talk top heavy, like top 4 teams being way better than everybody else. It's kind of the way this ranking hashes out. Texas Tech's the next Big 12 team you find. They're down at 36. So a 16-team gap from Utah at 20 down to Texas Tech at 36. Then here comes the Big 12. Colorado at 40. Arizona State at 42. Arizona at 44. And then there's a drop-off again. West Virginia at 55. And I've already told you they're undefeated in Big 12 play. They've got a legit shot to make some noise at the very least. Past them, UCF at 61, which might be generous. And they're still ranked ahead of Florida. Thank you, CBS Sports. Very nice of not watching the games. Oklahoma State at 66. And here's where things, to me, really get crazy. Cincinnati is at 69 in the national rankings. Very nice place to be. Wouldn't be mad if I was you. TCU at 76. Baylor at 78. Houston at 83. Kansas at 89. What this says to me, and by the way, Mississippi State, oh, big bad SEC. UCLA, oh, big bad Big Ten. Yeah, the Bruins are at 95. The Bulldogs are at 96 in the country. What I've learned, what I've given you here, is that the best teams in the Big 12 are teams that we didn't expect to be 1 and 2. Iowa State and BYU. 2 of those teams in the top 4, Kansas State and Utah, predictable. The worst teams in the Big 12 are schools that have represented this league for years in Baylor and TCU. What do you do? Kansas, what are you doing? We just brought in 8 teams. They're like, all right, yeah, these 8 teams need some time to adjust. They're better than you. Sans Houston, who just beat TCU. So what I'm getting at here? You're like, oh, okay, Drake, this is enough. You've gone on long enough. What is the thesis? If you're a Big 12 fan of a Big 12 team, at this point, it is imperative to, instead of rooting for chaos, root for the best members of our conference. But I hate Iowa State. Why? What? I hate BYU. If you are any team in this league not named Utah, what is there to hate about BYU? They give you ice cream. They have cougar tails. The mountains are really cool, and they're good at football. Iowa State has a facility where they brew beer on campus, and it's good beer. And their fans love sports. Remember the Iowa State Jim Carrey basketball guy? If you're really new to the conference, you have no idea what I'm talking about, but the OGs know. Like, don't hate even Utah, Kansas State. We are here to love those at the top of the league, to put ourselves in the best position. I am the host of Locked On Big 12. The better that your Big 12 team does, the better that we all do. It is our time to gather together, come together as one this election season, and root for the Big 12. Vote. It's time to get out there and vote for those top 4 teams in the Big 12 to keep winning football games. Keep winning football games. Build their stock in the top 25. Build their college football playoff resumes, and show that the Big 12 has 4 really good teams, 5 pretty average teams, and then kind of everybody else. I think that everybody else category as well is going to be it'll be decision time at some point between Arizona State and Cincinnati. Which one are you? Are you 7-5 or 5-7? That seems to be kind of like my 2 very evenly matched teams, and one will be left out of a bowl game. Just because that's the way the conference goes. Also, Oklahoma State, what are you doing? Hey, good to see you down there. What are you doing? I would rather you not keep doing what you're doing and win, please. Coming up, let's talk Kansas State losing to Colorado. That wouldn't be good for this theory, would it? On Locked On Big 12, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Of course it is, right? You know I love FanDuel. I said, FanDuel, give me those Kansas City Chiefs to cover on Monday night, and they did. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. When you get a hunch in the middle of a game, I have a hunch. You can go to FanDuel, check out the latest stats, view live, play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That is FanDuel.com. FanDuel.com today. Place your first $5 bet. Get $200 in bonus bets. It's America's #1 sportsbook. It's FanDuel.com. Visit them now. Download the app. Mwah. Will Colorado beat Kansas State this week in Big 12 play? That's Spencer McLaughlin of Locked On College Football. Spencer, if the line is Colorado beat Kansas State, you in, you out, you buy, you sell. How do you feel about this matchup in Boulder?
Sell. I love Kansas State in this spot. Not like them. I love them. Kansas State is a team to me that looks incredibly prepared to win the Big 12. Not in the prettiest fashion where they throw the football and they...
The same Kansas State that got trounced by BYU?
Yes, in the most crazy, unpredictable, hectic game in which BYU's defense and special teams dominated. Call me when Colorado comes up with a dominant defense and special teams unit. Now, are they improved from a season ago? Yes, we've seen that play out. To this point in the season, I haven't yet seen enough from Colorado on either side of the ball to make me think, yeah, they're ready to go toe-to-toe with Kansas State. That'd be like a next year sort of question if Colorado can find themselves a new quarterback and a star wide receiver, of course. But no, I think that there are limits, and I feel this way about Arizona as well. There are limits, and there is an overarching limit is the word that I'm looking for there, to what two guys can do for you. Colorado and Arizona, very similar football teams. They have two guys. You know those two guys are great. You're not going to stop them. They're going to make amazing plays. But two guys are not winning you a conference. Kansas State, much more complete football team. I think they're more balanced. I trust their ability to be more balanced on offense, even with the limitations with Avery Johnson as a passer. I trust that more than Colorado running game. I like Kansas State 34-27.
Is Jimmy Horn Jr. chopped liver? Will Shepard? I mean, this is possibly the deepest receiving core in the country, and it's in Boulder, Colorado. And granted, the running game is not great. They haven't been able to establish that really at all this season. But throwing the football, Colorado is elite. They have a Heisman caliber quarterback, possibly a Heisman contending quarterback in Shedeur Sanders. Their receiver core, you have 4 different options that are all good, great, elite, more so in that great elite category as well. And Kansas State, from a defensive standpoint, has been good against both the rush and the pass. My thing is, though, I'm not sure if we look at what Kansas State's gotten this season. They've seen Noah Fafita. They saw Ted McMillan, but we've talked about it with multiple people across the Locked On Podcast Network. You're right. Arizona's one-dimensional. They have two guys offensively. Like they're going to be Noah Fafita to Ted McMillan. I think Colorado has so many more weapons that Kansas State hasn't seen an offense like this. BYU was not. Would you agree? Like I don't think BYU gave them Tulane didn't give them the same offense they're going to get. I'm just not positive that the Colorado offense isn't good enough that Kansas State struggles to pick a guy to guard.
So I do agree with your point that Colorado's receiving core is superior to that of Arizona's. Now, is there a wide receiver who is as singularly good as Tetairoa McMillan? Also no, and I included Travis Hunter in there because T-Mac is wide receiver 1 in the NFL draft class of 2025. So whereas Travis Hunter is all-purpose / corner number 1 in all likelihood. But when I look at what Kansas State did against Arizona, that's where I get my confidence in the Wildcats here. Both these teams.
So that 1 game out of 5.
What's that?
Is that 1 game out of 5 that you get your confidence from Kansas State?
Not exclusively, but it is the point that I go to. Like, they have an ability to take a prolific passing attack with a great quarterback that, yes, has other weapons. On 3rd down and 7, where's Shedeur looking? Where's he looking? Sometimes they'll go to Jimmy Horn for sure. He wants to go to number 12. He wants to go to number 12. It might not be quite as dependent of a connection as it is for Fafita and McMillan, because he feels like he only looks to number 4, whereas Shedeur Sanders is usually looking to number 12 on the perimeter. But that is still a high-level passing attack. That is still a team that knows how to throw the football. And Kansas State did an exceptional job. Now, the challenge, of course, is Kansas State's on the road. They were at home against Arizona. But here's the other thing that makes me like Kansas State. What can often be your best way to play defense against a high-octane offense with a quarterback like Shedeur Sanders? What is the best way to do that sometimes, Drake?
Sack him.
Make him a spectator. And Kansas State is going to line up, and they're going to run the football, and they're going to run it again. And when they get to 3rd and 6, they are going to quarterback run it for a 1st down. And they will chew the clock, and they will chew the clock. And yes, there will be some explosive plays in this game because I don't think either defense is fully dominant. I think Kansas State's has been better this year, but Colorado's, like I said, vastly improved. I look at Kansas State and say, you have the ability, you have the personnel, you have the mindset, the philosophy, the execution, everything has been there to run your offense in a way that makes Shedeur Sanders have as much productivity for long stretches of this game as you and I. Expect a lot of 6 to 8 minute scoring drives for Kansas State. Chris Kleiman needs to take field goals. got to be able to take field goals in this spot, because I don't think that you can afford to go on the road and get into those situations. But if you are going to try and run out the clock a little bit more, depending on how explosive they are in the run game against Colorado, I think you've got to be willing to take your points, go down the field, chew some clock, and not give Shedeur Sanders as many possessions and plays as he's used to.
See, I'm worried that if that does become a game of field goals for Kansas State, and they find themselves at some point down 14-6, that's where I worry about Avery Johnson, where we say, hey, Avery, we need you to go throw the football, that we need to move laterally quickly. I'm not sure Avery Johnson can do that yet, because he proved against BYU he couldn't. Granted, a superior BYU defense is what you're going to get from Colorado. I agree. But I don't know. I can't trust Avery Johnson to be the kid that says, all right, we're down 7, we're down 10. I'm going to go win us this football game with my arm. I'm not sure yet. Let's break down quickly for the next minute. For Colorado, they go to Arizona. Cincinnati they host. Texas Tech on the road. Then a stretch against Utah, Kansas, Oklahoma State. These games are starting to look a lot easier for the Buffs. Are they a Big 12 contender based on how the rest of their schedule cracks out? Because Arizona might not be as good as expected. Still don't know about Texas Tech. Utah, Kansas, and Oklahoma State are back.
Some of us saw Arizona being just an average team coming. I don't know who those people were, but they certainly exist somewhere out there. Yes, many people have said all of these things. So if Colorado wins this football game, you have to look at them as a Big 12 championship contender. If they lose this football game, they're not technically out of it. For all intents and purposes, I think they are, because there are still a number of tough games on that schedule. And by the way, before the year, I picked Colorado to go to Arizona and upset the Wildcats. I have not wavered off of that prediction right now. I have not been given any evidence to think that what I thought before the year is going to change in the way it plays out in Tucson. But of course, their attention is on Kansas State. If you beat a team in Kansas State who I believe is capable of winning the Big 12, I'm not going to look at Colorado as a middle, not quite top of the second tier of the Big 12. No, I'll see you as a tier 1 team, because you will have gone on the road, not just beaten UCF, but dominated them, which is what a conference title contender would do. And if you then come back home off of a bye and you beat a team that before the season and during the year has been seen as a Big 12 conference title contender, yes, Colorado can move themselves into that upper echelon, but they have to win this game for me to see them as that.
Spencer, thanks very much.
You're so welcome.
That's Spencer McLaughlin of Locked On College Football. He's going to join us in the next segment to pick all the Big 12 games. I'll see you in a second. This is Locked On Big 12, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time's where I go. I need tickets to that one game. I'm going to go to Game Time. I needed tickets to see UCF in Florida play. I went to Game Time. And Game Time said, hey, last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Here's a view of your seat, buddy. We have super deals. Seat views before you buy. Lowest price guaranteed as well. And Game Time ticket coverage is the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Folks, what time is it? That would be Game Time.
Does BYU just keep surprising us all and making me look like a darn fool for doubting Kalani Sitake and company? Drake Toll, Locked On Big 12, joining me to pick the rest of the Big 12 games. I'll get his pick on Kansas State, Colorado, but that's going to come later, because I think Kansas State's going to win. He'll just have to sit with that for a little while and try to formulate a response to my absolutely airtight argument there. But I want to start with BYU here, Drake. This is an undefeated football team, just as we all imagine. They, along with Florida State, among the earliest to hit over or under their preseason win total, according to our friends at FanDuel. Are they making it 6-0 at home against Arizona this week?
Yeah, no doubt. They're definitely going to make it 6-0 this week. And you ever watch? I haven't made you the Santa Claus reference to you yet. Have I done this?
I love the Santa Claus movies. Hit me.
With Tim Allen. And listeners of my show, that's the 9th time this guy's done this. When Tim Allen kills Santa Claus, which is way darker if we really break down the concept of that movie.
Oh, it's an accident.
Who becomes Santa Claus, Spencer?
Tim Allen.
Tim Allen becomes Santa Claus. When BYU beat Kansas State, when you beat a contender in the Big 12, you now have to become Santa Claus. You've got to become a contender in the Big 12. You can't be a 7-5 team that was just, we wreaked havoc on the top of the Big 12 and kicked everybody out of college playoff contention for an at-large bid. BYU has to win down the stretch, and this is another week against an Arizona team who is quite volatile. They won on the road against Utah. Now, granted, Utah didn't really have a quarterback in that game, but we've seen Utah play well without Cam Rising. We've seen their defense play plenty well, and they didn't do enough to beat Arizona. Then the Wildcats were behind the 8 ball against Texas Tech on the road. Now they go to Provo. Big noon kickoffs there. Joel Klatt's there. You got the Gus Johnson. And with that, Spencer, my only worry is the pomp, the circumstance of a day game, and all that you put around it.
Did you just leave out the All-American girl, Jenny Taft?
And Jenny Taft is going to be on the sidelines with, and the BYU players.
I will not stand for Jenny Taft overlooking.
Same age as Jenny Taft, by the way. Her and all the BYU linebackers. They're going to be hanging out on the sidelines this weekend, and that's my only worry is that not the lights get too bright, but the lights aren't bright enough. It's a day game at BYU. The pomp circumstance is too much, and BYU kind of falls victim to it. However, College Football Insiders, Stats O War on Twitter, they break these games down based on analytics. BYU has an 85% chance of victory, while the spread is like 4 right now. They have BYU winning by 14 points. I think BYU covers and wins by at least 10.
I want to pick Arizona, even though as Wildcat fans would probably just hear me out here. As Wildcat fans would probably tell you, I have not been waving the pom-poms for Brent Brennan and company. I'd also like to point out I have been summarily right on Arizona to this point. Here's why I want to pick Arizona. I don't know if I am, but the reason that I want to is because there is always a game that a team that pushes for a conference title in the Big 12 loses, and you're like, wait, how did that happen? You know, like why did that? Take the Big 12 last season, different league, but same sorts of vibes. Why did Texas lose to Oklahoma? They were a significantly better football team. There's a rivalry factor, sure, but this just feels like one of those games where everyone wants to just write in BYU. And if BYU's defense plays the way they have the last several weeks, and they're coming back home, of course, off a bye, no less, and Arizona is not, I do wonder what Arizona's offense is going to be capable of. Because if Jay Hill's defense doesn't have that connection, if they don't have the it factor to slow down Arizona, if the crowd is just okay because it's a day game, not a night game, suddenly Noah Fafita and T-Mac go for a combined 250 yards and 3 touchdowns, and you can lose a football game.
Yeah, I'm worried if BYU gets down against this offense of Arizona, that'd be a struggle, because I don't know if I'm all the way behind A-Rod and the BYU offense yet. I'm not. I don't believe that Jake Retzlaff getting down 10, 14 points early can put BYU in a position to win. The defense is going to have to do that. So that's a scenario in which BYU can win. Why does Brent Brennan wear the lays, both of the lays? Like, it's the Polynesian thing with Tet McMillan and Noah Fafita, but like Kalani Sitake doesn't do that. Like, that's the most Polynesian football team in the country. I don't know. I'm going to need the explanation for every week too. Like, at some point we just don't.
Okay, yeah, that's as good a reason as any to pick against Arizona. That said, give me the Wildcats in the upset here. I'm taking it. This is just a vibes pick. I'm going to look back and say I was an absolute fool at one point in time, or I might look back and say I was a visionary there. But speaking of Utah, you mentioned them. They play at Arizona State this week in a game that before the year you would write off as, oh, that's an easy win for Utah. They're going to cruise. But you would have said the same thing about Arizona because it was at home, but Cam Rising didn't play. I don't care if Kyle Whittingham himself were to come out, which he never would. If he were to come out and say, Cam is going to play this week, he's going to start at quarterback, it feels like Rising will find a way to not finish the football game. At the very least, I take Arizona State +6. I don't think Utah loses another football game. Kyle Whittingham has been very good off a loss in his career, but give me Arizona State to keep that close. Kenny Dillingham has got the boys humming right now.
Yeah, this is going to be a low-scoring game, and that bodes well for both teams. Actually, it's not going to hurt Arizona State if that's the case, and here's why. Their efficiency against the rush on defense, 11th in the country, against the pass, 41st. Guess what Utah can do? Run the football, not throw the football. So if you're Arizona State, you're in a good spot when your run defense is better than your pass defense. And your run defense analytically is elite. Hey, guess what? Utah on 3rd and 4th down offensively, 119th in the country. Yeah, that's not good. Arizona State, conversely, offensively, 30th in the country. They're 15th in rushing efficiency. Cam Scadaboo is good. If you ask the analytics, just the analytics, 66% chance for Arizona State to win. They pull the upset this week if Cam Rising does not play for Utah.
If Cam Rising doesn't play, I'm taking ASU 100%, but it's back to everyone's favorite game. Is he going to play? If he does, I'll take Utah to win, because with him there, they're the best team in the Big 12. That still remains the case. That fact has not changed. It's just this boring question at this point. Is he ever going to play? Let's talk about one of the most under-the-radar games in all of college football this weekend. Number 11 Iowa State traveling to Morgantown, West Virginia. Drake, this has got... Do you smell that? Do you smell that? What is that? What
is that? A trap? Is that a rat?
Opportunity? No. Upset. I smell upset.
Did you fart?
No, that was a Big Short reference. I hope somebody out there was able to get it. But I am on big time upset alert here for Iowa State going to West Virginia. I like the Cyclones. I also don't dislike the way West Virginia has been playing recently.
Yeah, apparently Alan Bowman is not playing for Oklahoma State anymore. He's just kind of maybe going to hang it up in the middle of the season. It's funny as that is, like that's a rumor in Stillwater right now that Garrett Rangel will move forward for the Cowboys. And what that says to me is that this West Virginia team has still not gotten their marquee victory. Yeah, a dilapidated Kansas, and yeah, an Oklahoma State, who is one of the most disheveled Big 12 teams in the conference. Iowa State, on the other hand, has shown me nothing yet but consistency. They are the most even team in the league, and they play pretty much the same way every weekend, both offensively and defensively. They're 26th in the country running the football, 25th throwing the football. That's as even as you can get. They're really good on third and fourth down offensively as well. And then their defense is just elite, especially against the pass. Their secondary has been spectacular. Now, what does West Virginia do well? They run the football. They got three guys that can do it, from Jaheim White, CJ Donaldson, Garrett Green. Their receivers still have something to prove. If this game becomes West Virginia just keeping it on the ground, Iowa State wins by 10. Analytics also favor Iowa State by double digits. I'm going to go Cyclones sneaking this one out, despite it being the Cole game for West Virginia.
Iowa State 21-17. I think they get up, but I just want everyone to be aware that you're going to look around at all these amazing games on this legendary, much hyped, deservedly so, Saturday of college football is going to be great. And you're going to go, wait a minute. Number 11's in a dogfight with who? They're doing what now? Like, this is not going to be an easy game. Cincinnati UCF, really quick.
Yeah.
I don't know that I actually care about this game. Do you?
Hey, boo, stop. I do. I host Locked On Big 12. Cincinnati wins this game by 10. UCF can't throw the foot. I watched them live last week.
I know. And Sorsby's playing some nice football for Cincinnati. Yes. They've been better than people thought. I also struggle to pick UCF even at home. They are not playing good football right now. So I'll go with you, and I'll just copy whatever your score prediction was. I was tuned out. But anyway, Drake, I wasn't actually tuned out. Just
31-21. 31-21. Cincinnati.
Yeah, I can see that happening. Kansas State, Colorado. I think Kansas State wins. I think Kansas State covers. I've got 34-27. I think this is going to be a really, really fun football game. Colorado can win if Kansas State isn't careful. But I do like the Wildcats in this spot. Yeah,
I lean Kansas State. I worry, okay, if this game's low scoring, I'm definitely going Kansas State. If it's a shootout, can Avery Johnson keep up? You saw him get buried against BYU in that BYU defense, but we know that Colorado's defense is not near as good as what the Cougars give you. My biggest question mark for the Buffs as of right now, who have they beaten? Who have they beaten? Maybe their best win was against North Dakota State.
I mean, beating UCF by 27 on the road, I'm not going to completely take that away from them, because I was surprised at the time, and it is no doubt an impressive win. You know the question I have for Kansas State in this game, Drake? They have collected as a team 12 sacks this season. That's not a huge number. It's not necessarily terrible, but you're averaging just over 2 sacks a game.
That was UCF's issue, too. They couldn't get to the quarterback against Colorado.
Yeah.
I do want to get back here, though.
If you tell me right now Kansas State pressures Shedeur Sanders and sacks him at least 3 times, give me the Wildcats. Big, and I mean big. If they don't do that, it's going to be a lot harder.
Just 3 times. I mean, they're averaging 2.5 per game. So you need them a half more sack here.
Well, Shedeur's used to getting sacked 11 times a game. So
right. So 3, is that your metric for Kansas State? I believe that the Wildcats
4.
Again.
All right, I'll go to 4. How about that? We'll go to 4.
I'm going to go a team that's a bit more even keel. We saw them implode against BYU. I don't think Colorado's defense is as strong as the Cougs. I think Kansas State ekes this one out, though. No, you know what? I'm going to do it. St. Bill Snyder comes on the show later this week and says he's going to tattoo his butt if Colorado beats Kansas State. Give me Colorado. The Buffs win it 34-28, Colorado.
That That was incredibly prepared. I love every second of it. Drake Toll, Locked On Big 12. That's how every game in the Big 12 is going this week. We will not be wrong on a single matter, even though we disagreed on, several of those games. Thanks, Drake.
Thanks. That was Spencer McLaughlin. We picked all the games in the Big 12 this week. The Colorado one's kind of interesting. This has been Always Will Be. Come back tomorrow for more football. Oh, best bets. And the Big 12 squad episode. Locked On. Thanks for making it your first listen every single day. Dos Grande.